In this video, I'm going to show you what daily life is like on board a luxury cruise ship. But not just any luxury cruise ship, one that is sailing into the Arctic Circle. So let's go and have a look and see if we need to do any ice breaking along the way. The start of any cruise nowadays always starts with a muster station safety check and life jacket drill. Sometimes now that just involves watching it in your cabin and finding your muster station, but thanks to the tragedy that was learned with the Titanic, that is something that now always takes place on board. And little side note, the Cunard ships are actually the modern day version of the Titanic ships, as they actually are part of the same company. The White Star Line became Cunard White Star Line in the 1940s when Cunard bought out the company. So they actually are modern day Titanics and perhaps one of the most traditional ships at sea. Bearing this in mind, the dress code on board is relatively formal, but through the day it is perfectly acceptable to be kind of smart casual. So now I'm dressed and up and ready. Let me show you what a typical day on board a luxury cruise ship looks like. On this particular morning, I decided to make my way up to the Artisan Food Hall, which is kind of like a little bit of a buffet where you can get anything you want, from a range of pastries to a cooked breakfast to fruit. There is even an omelette station. The choices are endless. But it is possible to also get breakfast in your room or go to the main seated dining restaurant. After breakfast, Johnny went for his obligatory morning habit, and I, on the other hand, went to a lecture. But not before this little bit of mischief took place. Don't do anything weird in the background. Okay, I am going to watch a lecture on astronomy. Oh no! And one more time, let's try that again.
Put your in your mouth and Pavlova.
So it's just before lunchtime now, and I am going to go watch a lecture on astronomy. So let's go.
So this is what a solar flare looks like with our modern instrumentation. At weather on other planets, so at extreme atmospheres in our solar system and at planets.
After the lecture, I decided to have a little browse around the onboard shops before going for a little stroll on deck, which I'm about to show you here, before re-rendezvousing with my mum. But the onboard lectures about solar weather in the polar regions were particularly interesting because obviously we were on an Arctic cruise. It was interesting to learn about how solar activity affects the magnetic poles and also what even causes the aurora borealis and why perhaps solar activity is highly impacted by climate change also. I feel at this point it's a good time to mention that Cunard have ultimate sustainability efforts with an aim to be completely carbon neutral by 2050. I've decided to have a little bit of a walk around on deck, but it is now starting to get quite cold as we head up towards Iceland. It's changed from being sort of a summery cruise to a cold cruise. Been looking around the shops, as you probably saw in the last clip, and they've got quite a lot of sustainable brands as well that they even sell on board, like Neal's Yard and Moroccan Oil. So that's nice. The sea is getting rather rough. I've seen a few seasick people, but we are okay. This is actually the walking deck, and if you do 2.5 laps It is the equivalent to 1 mile, but you can walk or jog, as you can see. What I would really like to do now is actually take a step back or a look back for a brief moment, because I just mentioned that we were heading up into the Arctic Circle, where the weather was particularly starting to get a bit colder, a bit windier, definitely more turbulent seas. But only a few days ago, before we had, of course, entered or started to enter the Arctic Circle, it had been incredibly sunny on deck. It was possible to play deck games, have a go at driving, as in golf, and even the pitch and putt. They even had tennis on board, which we had a great time playing. So you will find that on luxury cruise ships, it is, of course, incredibly a different experience, depending on whether you go to somewhere warm or somewhere cold. So I wanted to show you all a little bit of difference of what daily life on board can be like, depending on what is happening with the weather and the sea. For instance, on sea days where people are not getting off in port, when we can obviously go on shore, it's also a little bit busier in general too. So let's have a look at that. On a sea day on board this particular ship in the Cunard fleet, it's a little bit difficult to get afternoon tea in the Queen's room. Differently from all the other ships, this one has a slightly smaller Queen's room, but the great news was we actually got upgraded to the Britannia Club this day. So that's the swanky restaurant that you would normally have to pay more for. And that actually happened a couple of times, as you can see here. But as you can see here, we did eventually all get to have afternoon tea together in the Queen's room, which is just a different experience where all the waiting on staff come out with their white gloves on, and it's all like a bit more ceremonial. So there's pros and cons to each way of having afternoon tea. After afternoon tea, we had a little bit of a family meeting in the chart room to decide what we all wanted to do with the rest of our day. After some deliberation, we went to a pub quiz in the Golden Lion English pub on board, which my mum and Johnny were delighted because they won. It did, of course, get busier than this in the Golden Lion once the quiz started. Get your little head in. Get your little heads in. Having so much fun is sometimes quite exhausting, so some days we did retire to our cabin for a little afternoon nap. After an afternoon nap, what's better than a little coffee to perk you up again for the rest of your day? And if you've missed afternoon tea, you can even get various shoe type pastries until a little later in the day. Of course, this was spread over a couple of days for us. But back to the current day. So I've decided to come back to my cabin for a little bit, having refilled my ice water. We do have a fridge in our cabin. We'll do a cabin tour at some point, maybe with the whole ship tour. But one thing I like to do every day is check the navigation on the TV to see where we currently are. Now, as we set off, it was obviously summer in the UK, so it was very warm. We could do things on deck like play tennis, which I might have shown you some clips of by now. And as we head further and further north, it's obviously getting a little bit more rough because the sea where we are travelling on, I'm about to show you, is now the Atlantic, and it's getting further north, which is where the Atlantic Gulf Stream is, almost like a whirlpool. So I want to see how close we are. Let me put this in the fridge. One thing that's actually been quite funny on this cruise compared to other sailings that I've been on is because we're going to a cold place and the sea's been quite rough for the last couple of days, everybody is inside, meaning it is quite a bit busier than on a normal sort of typical cruise, and therefore it's been quite challenging trying to vlog. I mean, I have slowly on the time on this channel got used to vlogging in and around people now, but as there is also a disclaimer on our cruise details saying to be mindful of other people on their holiday, it's been quite tricky. I can only really sort of film if I am filming directly my mum and my partner or myself. It's hard to get shots without getting people's faces in, but I have been doing my best, but it's making me feel a bit apprehensive about another video I want to film actually showing you all the tour of the ship. So I'm thinking I am still going to try and do it, but because I want to be respectful of other people, I'm thinking that I will do it very, very early on a morning or very late at night. So let me show you the navigation. So on our TV we have the ability to go to the navigation centre and see where we currently are. We have left, as you can see down there, Cork. We've gone all the way up there, and now we're about halfway to Iceland, and all this is the Atlantic, and the Gulf Stream comes up here and round here, right where we currently are, which is why it looks quite rough outside. Let me show you outside. So this is the current weather. The waves don't look that big, but there is quite a bit of a swell on, making the ship sort of rock from side to side rather than upwards and down. What's quite funny on cruise ships, or at least these cruise ships, are they don't really allow you to have walkie-talkies anymore, which used to be something people did so you could keep in touch with each other, because as you probably gathered from when I was walking around deck, the ship is about half a mile long. So if you lose each other on the ship, unless you've arranged to meet somewhere, like back in the olden days when we all didn't have phones, you just don't know where each other is, so, or each other are. So I've kind of been making set plans to meet each other, because sometimes some of us want to do things that others don't. So for instance, I went to the astronomy lecture. My mum and Johnny didn't fancy that, so they've gone off to do their own thing. But then sometimes you just don't know where each other is, so you can leave a message on the cabin phone from anywhere in the ship. You can ring your cabin and sort of say, I'm here, and leave a message, so that at least if the person comes back to the cabin looking for each other, they can pick up a message to know where the person will be until X amount of time. So for instance, I might ring and say, I'm going to be in the Queen's room from 3 till 4 having afternoon tea if anybody wants to come and meet me. And if they don't, they don't, and you just have to hope that you'll bump into each other at some point, because it is just too big to go looking for each other. You could also be constantly moving around the ship without each other and keep missing each other. And nowadays you're not allowed to have walkie-talkies on board, and your phones seldom work while you're at sea. And even though you can buy Starlink now to use the Wi-Fi, it is very expensive. It's $30 a day. So we just decided that when we came on the ship, we were going to have time out from having Wi-Fi. And even if you buy the Starlink Wi-Fi, I think you still have to go up to one of the top decks to use it. So we have been going without, and it's been a nice detox from being able to check anything. can't check emails, can't really check messages on Messenger or anything. Most of the time you can't even receive text messages and things, so you really are kind of cut off from everything, even each other who is also on board. So my plans now are to just do what I just said, leave a message on the voicemail of the cabin telling my mum and Johnny where I am, because I don't know where they are. We've all been milling around doing our own thing. So I will see you on deck, which is precisely where I found Johnny and my mum enjoying a little bit of the sun after the weather took a little turn. So we spent the afternoon on deck, and then we heard there was an ice sculpture being carved in the pavilion, which we went to go watch. So then it was time to start getting ready for the formal gala evening. Throughout our time on board, we actually had 3 of these. One was gold themed, one was black and white themed, and one was just simply whatever you wanted, as long as it was formal. I particularly like this. I think it's quite nice to have relative relaxation throughout the day, but get glammed up on the evening, or as they say, putting on the Ritz. And we did this several times. So I wanted to show you all a montage of the various evenings that we got ready before showing you all what a typical evening meal looks like on board a luxury cruise ship.
Calimera. Welcome to another day on the Cunard. They call me Jonathan, and I like yogurts.
Yogis.
I love yogurts, but I just can't bloody eat them because I have lactose intolerance. Cool as snatch.
After all that getting ready, it was finally time for dinner, and it was definitely worth the effort. Water is served as standard, which is what I am drinking here. I also went with the escargot. I am pescatarian. I also eat shellfish and bivalves. I then had the vichyssoise soup and the mushroom Wellington for my main course. Then what came next was probably my favourite thing that I ate the whole cruise, and that was a pistachio souffle. It was to die for. I was in heaven. Can you tell? It's warm and beautiful. Oh my god, so nice. Oh my god. It was at this point in the day that Johnny would often retire for a cigar after dinner. Now, I didn't catch that on the particular evening at hand, but here is a clip from the previous evening. And don't forget, it's the Arctic Circle, home of the midnight sun, so it is light out. And we would use this time normally to review what we wanted to do next. And we'd been told by a fellow passenger that there was actually a murder mystery on board this evening, which we decided to attend. You get a free glass of champagne on entrance, and let's just say they do a little bit of scouting amongst the passengers to see who may have a particularly extrovert side when they want to. So guess who got roped into being in part of the show? You guessed it. Here are the photographs they also took on my phone, having absconded with it. After all that fun, we retired to our staterooms where we found our nighttime Cunard chocolate waiting for us on our pillow. And here is a message from me that I recorded earlier in the day. So I'm now having a little bit of an afternoon rest, but I will take this opportunity to also record the outro because later in the day we will be getting ready for the gala evening, which you guys have probably now already seen. And it's probably been quite a long but relaxing day, and later my mum and Johnny will also be in the cabin with me, so I do not want to invade on their holiday too much with the filming. So basically I will say bye for now. Hope you're enjoying the Icelandic travel series in the Nordic region of the Arctic Circle. See you all in the next one. Hope you enjoyed this day in my life living on a cruise ship. Bye. And with that, we set sail for Scotland, having completed our time sailing around the Arctic Circle, particularly the Icelandic region of the Arctic Circle. If you haven't seen any of the other vlogs, this is a travel vlog series which covered all our time doing that on board this luxury cruise ship. Stay tuned for future travel vlogs, and we aim to not just cover luxury travel in the future, but all different modes of travel. Travel on a shoestring, travel in luxury, you name it, we're going to do it. And as we've learned in this grand voyage, the best things in life truly are free, such as Mother Nature's recipes. And that's why, if we're lucky, the bare necessities of life can come to us. Hope you've enjoyed the series. Bye until the next one.